Good morning, it's Lou Collins. It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 9th, is it today? The 9th of April, 2012. It's just after 11 o'clock. I've got two people in with me. I've got James, as usual. Morning, James.
Good morning, Lou. How are you?
I'm very well. And I've also got Mr. Brian Gerrish in. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning to you.
And over on Skype, we have, here's the technology bit going, Roger Hayes. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
So, the main subject, really, I suppose, of this show today is the forthcoming trip to Aberdeen, which your idea, Roger. Can you tell us how's it all going, how the plan's getting on, and, how far, are we all set up for Aberdeen next weekend?
Well, we are. We've obviously called on as many people as are able to do so, to go to Aberdeen, to actually assist to expose what's been going on with regards to the unlawful imprisonment of Robert Greene. And we're planning a leafleting campaign in the city. And obviously, as far as we're concerned, this is the line in the sand with regards to the way the establishment there is breaking the law and will not pay attention to many of the facts that have arisen out of what Robert Greene has been exposing. And obviously we're talking about alleged paedophile ring in Aberdeen, and it seems that the establishment do not want to investigate the facts that he's put before them. So as far as the actual the campaign on in Aberdeen on the 14th and 15th this coming weekend, we're asking people if they can contact us and if they will actually make the effort to get to Aberdeen and help out with the leafleting campaign there.
Right, okay. Over these last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of, there's been all sorts of things coming up and questions over it. Over the case, which I want to really talk to Brian about. There's been lots of questions, there's been lots of infighting, we think. What are your thoughts on what's going on there, Brian?
Well, can I just say, in case we got some new listeners this morning, they may not be sure about what the background is of what we're talking about.
Okay.
What we're talking about is the case of a lady from Aberdeen called Anne Gregg and her daughter, who's a Down syndrome girl called Holly. And some time ago, we're talking some years ago, Holly made allegations about being sexually abused and raped by a gang of people, which included members of the Scottish establishment. And if we get these points up front, then we'll have a solid basis to be able to talk about the rest of the subjects during the show. Holly made accusations against a number of people. They included police officers, people in the Scottish judiciary, care assistants and others. And she gave details of what had happened to her. She also knew a lot of information. She knew people's names. She knew what their jobs were. She knew relationships between people. And she was eventually interviewed by Grampian police, and Grampian police described Holly Gregg as a reliable witness, and they made that statement in writing. So we have a young Down syndrome girl who made very detailed and precise allegations of rape and abuse and some other related, and I'm going to say too disgusting things to talk about on air. The police interviewer, they acknowledge that she's credible, and then what do the police do? And the answer is, I'm afraid, nothing. They do not go and interview any of the people that Holly named. And from that time on, as Holly's mum Anne herself campaigned and pushed and cajoled for something proper to happen with the police so that her daughter could obtain justice, what happened was that pressure was put on Anne, including the worst kind at one stage, where a group of people arrived at her home, including police officers, including at least one police officer. They talked their way into her flat. When they got inside, she was forced to the ground. Her trousers were pulled down, and she had a needle stuck in her her bottom. And the next thing is she wakes up in a psychiatric unit. Now, some of our listeners might be shocked, and they might be disbelieving what I'm saying, but I will say to the people who are listening to us this morning, not only do I believe this story is true, and I've worked with Anne and Holly and other people such as Robert Greene for some time, but we have other cases to do with children being taken by the state where mothers who try and protect their children or speak out are sectioned. So Anne eventually got herself out of the psychiatric unit, or was released. She did something very sensible, which is that she got herself assessed by an independent psychiatrist who said this mother is perfectly normal. And from that time on, Anne has campaigned to get justice for her daughter. And Robert Greene was a man who came on the scene some years ago. He also took an interest in the case, and then he began to seriously research, I will say almost as an investigative journalist. But when he realised that the case was true and that there was a cover-up by the Scottish establishment and judiciary to prevent this abuse case from coming fully into the public domain, as he campaigned, Robert came under, I'm going to call it, the attack by the establishment, which has subsequently resulted in him being put into prison, and we believe that was done. That was basically a stitch-up, I think we will call it. So against that background, we've got a very turbulent case going on at the moment. It's quite clear from the actions of the state, and that is through the police or the judiciary in Scotland, but also south of the border, despite the fact that every single British MP has been informed about this case. Only 2 or 3 of them have shown any interest. The rest of them, faced with the fact that we have a major cover-up of child abuse, have simply preferred to hide their faces or remain silent. So do I think that we're in a situation where the state does not wish this protest to take place? My opinion is absolutely. Do I expect the state to do whatever dirty measures it can in order to shut people up? Absolutely. Do I believe that people should therefore say we can't get involved, or we don't want to get involved? Well, that is a very, very interesting question, because if we shy away from issues of getting the truth out about child abuse and cover-ups by the state, if we shy away from that, we are effectively living in a dictatorship. And so it's been very interesting to watch angst by a number of people who are clearly concerned at what may happen should they protest in support of Robert Greene. But I have to say that if we now seriously believe that in Britain today, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, it doesn't matter where, but if we seriously believe that if members of the public come out on the streets peacefully to protest because the state is not telling the truth, if that can't happen, then we're living in a dictatorship.
Yeah, there's been there's been sort of people who I don't know, they're hiding behind profiles, especially across Facebook, that have sort of tried to do their utmost into disrupting this campaign, starting hate campaigns, etc., towards myself and Bill Maloney, who's on the line now. You there, Bill?
Yeah, hello, Lou.
Hello. I've got Brian here, and we've got Roger on as well. What do people do? I mean, I'm on the outside of this. I followed it for years, and I had an opportunity with this radio show that I came up and I brought certain questions up. I interviewed Robert, I've offered people to come on the show to, you know, to counteract what other people are saying. Right. They've refused to kind of do that. They'd rather start their smear campaign towards myself, towards Bill Maloney, and I believe Belinda McKenzie, who fights for all different sorts of causes. What do people do?
And Brian Gerrish.
And Brian Gerrish, and exactly. So what do people do to, when these things are being said and put around over the net? Right. How do we cope with them?
Well, if I just answer very quickly, and obviously we've got Roger and Bill here as well, but from my point of view, I think probably we've got three types of people. We've got genuine people who are starting to learn about the case. Obviously, we do not conduct trials in public over the internet in this country, and I'm very pleased we don't. So all that the Holly Gregg case has been trying to do is to get a full and proper police investigation into the allegations made, and where people have been accused of abuse and rape and worse, they need to be brought into a police station and interviewed properly, and then based on that evidence the case brought into court, if that's the right thing to do. So that's the basis. Now, some people, perfectly good ordinary people, may be picking up bits and pieces of what's being talked about over the internet, and that is raising concerns because they want to know what the truth is, and they get agitated and they start to ask questions, and of course the more information you give out, the more questions are raised. This is why we need a proper police investigation. But I'm going to say that first group are good people, but they're getting agitated because they can't actually, they can't get hold of all the information they want. The second group of people are people who are spending a lot of time on Facebook. They get involved in all sorts of campaigns. A lot of them are very egotistic. One minute they're on your side, the next minute they're not. And we know that from Facebook and tweeting and Twitter, something gets said, it's taken out of context, that makes somebody else angry, and then they start to fight back and bicker at each other. And that is definitely going on in this case. I think that there are some very good people out there who've been misaligned, and basically they're now fighting back, and it's squabbling. It's not to do with the actual case. Right. The third group of people are the really dangerous ones, because it is perfectly, I'll say it's clear to me, and I'm not going to overstress this, but my background's military and I think I've got a little bit of understanding of some of this stuff, that we have professional people. They are working for the state. Their job is to monitor, to infiltrate and monitor Facebook pages, and their job is not only to suck information in about campaigners, but they are also tasked with disrupting campaigns which could be embarrassing or, in inverted commas, dangerous to the government. I'm going to call these people trolls, but these are professional people, and their job is to disrupt campaigns such as this one.
I believe there was a report, it's got to be 3 or 4 years old now, from the US, and they had something at the time, this was I think 2008, they had about 30,000 paid government employees, so that was their entire job, was just to troll controversial websites or places where people, you know, discuss politics, and in either steer people away from the truth or inject, like it was basically like a controlled propaganda arm, that it's there not to make sure that the truth is being said, but that, you know, people either, you know, if they have legitimate questions, they're steered away from them, or they'll inject lies and disinformation to throw the entire movement off. And they were even talking about, you know, scaling that up. So I mean, obviously we've got similar sort of business going on here. I mean, it's just it shouldn't even be like
an issue. No, it's just it had to be brought up.
Can I say something? Can I jump in there?
Sure, Bill.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Roger. Hello, Lou. And anyone else that's listening. I think Brian pretty much covered it all. What we're seeing at the moment is the government. They want. I just got back from my exercise, so I'm puffing and braying a little bit, you know. What the government they're trying to do now is they want control of your emails, they want control of your phone calls, your texts, your Twitters, everything. They want to see everything. And Holly Gregg's case is a very good sort of scenario why they want it, because it's getting out there. And it will get out there. There's no doubt at all in my mind that the Holly Gregg case will go strongly into the public domain. But as Brian said, there are trolls, but what we've all got to remember is when you go on Facebook, there are a lot of victims. And I'm talking to you victims now, as a victim. You get angry, and I can understand why you get angry. Things maybe aren't being said the way you want them to be said. You can't get your opinions across personally. Some of you do try hard, but you don't seem to be able to reach the pinnacle. That's what we're here for. Well, that's what I'm here for, and to give you a voice, and I can only do it in the way that I know how. Now, people are being attacked, and I think that all us victims, whether you want to call yourself a survivor, I don't call myself a survivor because I never will survive. I'll never survive the abuse that happened to myself, my 7 siblings, my mother, my father, and their family in Ireland. And when they brought us their children, when we came over here, we got the same treatment. And I would just say to you all, stop the infighting. This is the time to do it now. And as far as Holly Gregg is concerned, and Brian and Anne, I've spoke to the guy a lot of times, Robert Green, a lot. And I believe that the man's telling the truth. That's why I'm involved. Also, Anne, I believe she's telling the truth as well. You've got all of you listeners. You've got to put this scenario into your head. Some of your top politicians, some of your top bankers, so your top lawyers are and have been involved in paedophile rings, and that is it. End of story. So, you know, and as what we do at Pie Mesh Films, I'm afraid, is people that start denigrating those that are highlighting these cases, they just go. We just put them right out of our radar, and we carry on with the good people. So, also, I've been told to ask Roger. Up in Aberdean, a few people have asked me. Are concerned about being arrested, so I think you could chuck that ball into.
Yeah, I'm going to get back on to Aberdean in a minute, Bill. That was one of the questions of what happens if you know people do come under and do
It's all about numbers on the street, you know what I mean? That's what's going to highlight it. If you get the numbers there, and there are safety in numbers, and it should be peaceful, and there's no reason to shout at the police.
But it hasn't actually. Oh, I mean, Roger, are you still there?
I'm still here, but I can't hear anything that Bill's saying.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry, because he's on the phone. But there are concerns. Bill has said that, you know, there are concerns about people going up to Aberdean, that they may get arrested, and is security, you know, for everybody going up. I mean, first of all, it isn't a protest, is it? It's just the people going up on their own free will.
Let me be perfectly clear about this, that I don't know who started this scare tactic, but it's shocking. This is the sort of thing that, you know, deters people, and we are not doing anything unlawful. We are going up there as individuals, and the leaflet that we'll be handing around is a lawful leaflet. It doesn't mention anyone's names. It's not doing anything that other than questioning why Robert Green has been put in jail. So people should not be fearful that we're actually doing anything unlawful. And the other thing, of course, is that we're not meeting in one place. We're going to be distributed around Aberdean. And as I say, the most important thing is that we're not doing anything that is unlawful. And this is supposed to be a free country after all.
Yeah.
Could I just say, hi Roger, could I just say that you people out there that are involved in the Holly Gregg case or whatever other cases, if you call yourself activists, when you're an activist, you will get attacked and you will get arrested and you will be questioned, because this is a war. You know, this is becoming a media war. This isn't about violence or riots on the streets. This is the media. We have to get the national media to start reporting about these cases and not sanitise them as they should be. What do you think, Roger?
Oh, Roger can't hear you, Bill, but Brian can comment on that.
Yeah, well, agree with everything you've said, and just come back a little bit. That point about saying, do we believe what Anne and Holly Gregg are talking about? Do we believe Robert Green? For listeners, I can say absolutely. From talking to them, spending time with them, interviewing them, looking at documentation, I absolutely believe what they're talking about. This is a media war, an information war, as Bill has said. The government does not want the truth coming out about this case, because if the truth comes out about paedophile rings working at very high levels of the establishment, we are going to see heads rolling all over the place as the truth comes to the surface. We have a government, it doesn't matter whether it's been Labour or Lib Dem or Conservatives, they're all the same. Whenever there has been a danger that the truth, whether it's about money scandals or power scandals or drugs or children, whenever there's been a danger of the truth coming to the surface, they step in to close down information and media. How do they do it? They can put D-notices on, or they serve injunctions on people and organisations in the mainstream press, and if that doesn't work, they start the intimidation tactics. So it's principally information. The good news is that we know from where we've done campaigns before that provided people stay cheerful, they are peaceful, they are polite, they attempt to engage the police properly in conversation about why they're there and what they're trying to do. We have seen overwhelmingly a very good response from the police. They are interested, they're only interested in doing the key bit of their job, which is making sure there's no trouble. And I know that you know this as well, Bill. We're getting very good information passed to us by the police whistleblowers, because people in the police do not like the fact that they are being used to cover up paedophile rings at the highest level of the establishment and government. So
that's it, Brian, and they're the people. I agree with you 100%. I know, we are getting help from the police. And we've got police officers that are really putting their neck on the line. They really are, to give us information and to work with us as well. And one of the police officer that I'm working with, just one of them, he said, what it is, Bill, he said, all us old uns, they're getting rid of us because they want to bring in the new blood, because we now understand what has been going on. So the police officers, the old school, they are becoming themselves enemy of the state, as the state sees it, but friends of the people. I would like to say that, you know what I mean? I know we've got some bad police officers. If I could just continue and say that, we had times of big prosperity in the last Labour government. They were throwing money around like confetti. But the people that government, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, the people that they really neglected was the youth. That is why we now have 1.3 million children unemployed. Now that shows something to me. That shows that there is a disconcert of the kids, and they have been neglected, because there's all kind of neglect, And when Gordon Brown and Tony Blair came into power, they promised £3 billion. That just £3 billion would have got every child in this country above the poverty line. They haven't had their $3 billion in that 14 years.
Yeah, but Bill, they've got wars to support, haven't they?
Well, if I could just continue, they haven't had that $3 billion in that 14 years that Labour were there, in high prosperity. But this year, we gave the bankers $14 billion just in bonuses. And I would like to say that the bankers, everyone's frightened of the bankers. The politicians, the lawyers, the police, the army, everyone's frightened of the politicians because the banks, everyone's frightened of the banks because the banks has got everybody's money.
Well, it's not even, there's just numbers on a computer screen, actually, aren't they, really?
What are just numbers on a computer
My money's in my mattress, so.
What are just numbers on a computer screen?
The money, the money, this fiat currency. at the moment that that's what they're trading with, aren't they? It's just the money.
I want to stick to that point.
Yeah.
3 billion to get every child
Yeah.
above the poverty line in this country, but we can give 14 billion
Yeah.
to the bankers. Now they're just not numbers. They're not just numbers, because money is a tool.
Right.
And we could have done that. And the famine in Somalia, we gave 72 million to Somalia. They're still dying out there.
I just want to bring Brian in. 1 minute, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just because I'm doing a little bit of clock watching here, and I just wonder whether we could just come back towards Anne and Holly and
Yeah.
Robert Green. I believe that at the moment the state is now going flat out to cover up its tracks as to what has been done with children in this country, and I believe it's very significant. We have David Cameron now calling for a speeding up in the adoption process. The abuse of Holly Gregg is a secret the state does not want to come out, and I believe that we are going to see the state, and that of course it will be driven through social services, going flat out to get Holly into care. That's what it will be called, care. They will go flat out to try and get Holly away from her mother, because that will allow them to shut this case up permanently. And one of the things that I and you and many other people have obviously been speaking out, you've been doing it for years, Bill, because you've experienced it, but we are seeing that the state is taking away thousands of children from their parents on false pretences. We've had the Daily Mail recently highlighting that allegations have been made against a Dr. Hibbert for producing false psychiatric reports. You have dealt with hundreds of cases. I'm dealing with tens of cases at the moment where we are getting similar information, not just about that gentleman, but other psychiatrists and clinical psychologists, where evidence is being fabricated against mums and dads in order to steal their children. And we are talking about 1,000 children going into care every month. And when you say, where is the evidence to support the allegations of abuse by the parents, the state does not produce that evidence. It simply takes the children in courts, in family courts, which are secret courts because there is no public and there's no press.
Let's not forget about the money, Brian. Let's not forget about companies like Serco and the private companies, the adoption companies and the fostering companies. You know, you can go and foster a child, you get £500 a week. I've seen it on the back of a bus. Got a spare room, why not foster a child? £500 a week. So some people are fostering 6, 7 children. There's a lot of money. And so if they're getting that, what are the private companies getting?
Yeah, we've also got the BBC highlighting on children's BBC. There's a certain programme, I think it's one of their most popular programmes, highlighting how fun it is in a children's home.
Well, it wasn't much fun in the children's home that I was.
Well, exactly, but this is what they're putting out there. So
at Primus Films, we're getting emails from kids that are in care, and they are distraught. Most of them are on drugs. A lot of them are being trafficked or prostituted, and some of them are even doing it off their own back because they have to survive.
Yeah.
So perhaps we should just put in there why, if listeners are wondering why is the state doing this? Why doesn't the state want the truth to come out about the abuse of Holly Gregg? Why does the state not want the truth to come out about the number of children being taken under false pretences from their families? And the reason is, aside to protect money going into pockets, is the fact that if the truth really came out in the public domain, the sheer scale and horror of this would absolutely bring down the government, and it would also collapse all of the 3 main political parties, because they are all guilty of helping to cover up the abuse of British families. I will personally go a stage further and say this is not an accidental abuse. It's not an abuse which is just created out of greed. The state at the moment is actively attacking families with the objective of pulling them apart. And why does it want to do this? because if you destroy the strength of the family, you can then claim effectively the minds of those young children. So Holly Gregg is such a tremendously important case, because this case on its own can start this whole pack of cards tumbling down. And that is why at the moment we're seeing Westminster and the Scottish Parliament and the elite. This is really what we should be talking about, the elite people, both north and south of the border. They want Anne and Holly and Robert Greene silenced, because the truth that they hold is deadly to these abusive criminals that we now have in Westminster.
Well, Holly Gregg is a nuclear bomb ready to go off, actually, Brian. And they are terrified of Holly Gregg. They are absolutely terrified. And Holly has become, as you say, a weapon, you know. I would also like to just add, Lou, that just to put another twist on it, what Brian was talking about, the kids being brought into care, I believe that there is a destroying of a culture. I believe that a lower class culture is being destroyed. They want their babies, their children from babies now, because they don't want them tainted with that culture. They are trying to rid the country of that culture, who are open speaking, as I am, because I am from that culture, and we're not frightened to say what should be said, and we speak the truth, because we live with lies. We live with lies. You know, it's like I was listening to an old Irish guy on the net the other night, and he was saying we can forget the starvation of us, we can forget the beatings of us, we can even deal with our family alienation, but we cannot deal with being buggered, etc., etc.
Thanks, Bill. Roger?
Yes.
So we need just to jump on. I mean, it's all really serious, and it's just sort of a lot of it's over my head a little bit. But I want to just focus a little bit more on Aberdeen now. And firstly, have you had contact with Robert? Have you had any contact with him?
No, not directly. This is being done through other channels. Obviously, that there are some restrictions, so we're leaving that to one or two other people to do. But you know, obviously, feedback is that Robert enormously appreciates the support that we're giving. And as I previously said, I do believe this is a line in the sand. I believe the establishment have deliberately picked on Robert because what he is doing is he's very dangerous for them, because he's exposing what's going on. If I can just focus on the actual campaign on Saturday and Sunday, we'd like people to head to Aberdeen, and if they're able to contact us, the best person to contact, the coordinator, is Alan Kelly. And if I can just give you his email address, which is Alan, which is ALLAN. Kelly, KELLY, at hotmail.co.uk, or if they can actually go to freerobertgreen.co.uk and go via the contacts form there. If people are actually able to attend, we do need people up there to help hand out these leaflets.
Because I've just had a question come in. Whereabouts in Aberdeen are the main meeting points? But I suppose that would all go via Alan, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, what we're asking people to do is to contact us, and we can give you the information, because we don't want to sort of go publicising too much to too many people, because, you know, we're trying to limit the amount of disruption, if there is going to be any. I don't actually think there will be any, but we're being cautious. We're managing this properly, and if people can simply contact us, I'm going to give you a phone number as well. It would be preferable if people emailed or went via the contact form, because it's easier for us to manage. But if anybody is keen to phone, the phone number is, it's a mobile number, it's 07814 561 251. But importantly, the Alan E. Kelly at hotmail.co.uk is probably the most effective way to contact us.
Okay, there is
meeting points.
They've had another question in. Can we ask Roger, Brian and Bill what to do if the people are going up to Aberdeen and the group, some of the people have been infiltrated by various agents?
Well,
what should be done?
I think very, very importantly that what we're doing is lawful.
Yeah.
There's nothing to infiltrate. We are private individuals going up to Aberdeen to hand out lawful leaflets. That if anybody's infiltrating, all I'd suggest is give them more leaflets to hand out than anyone else, because we can make use of their time and efforts.
Right.
But we're not in a position where they're going to be able to find any information about us that we're not already revealing, because we are open and we have been fully open about what we're doing all the way through. So really, I mean, there's nothing to concern ourselves about.
I think I would just like to say with infiltration. What the main course, there's a lot of different potential agendas or personalities and all that sort of thing. There's two main facts. We've got an alleged abuse claim from Holly, right? So what do we want? And we want an investigation. Now that's it. Like, you know, if it's all made up, if there's all these lies and all the disinfo agents, whatever, if it's all lies, there's no evidence, then we'll have a trial. We'll have an investigation. It's going to cost the state, you know, £50,000 or £100,000 or whatever. I mean, we waste enough money. You know, having an abuse investigation isn't going to break us any more than all these other millions that we're spending on wars or the EU or whatever. So okay, let's have that investigated. There's nothing really to argue about with that, in my opinion. And then the other thing is that we know that Robert was incarcerated under some really, really, in my terms, dodgy circumstances, and we're showing our support for that. So people can say what they want, they can try to disrupt things what they want, but we are all individuals. We have our critical thought. We have two really simple, straightforward goals, which is, you know, a straightforward investigation, and we've got Robert's incarceration. So, you know, let them say that. Let them try and disrupt. Let them, you know, what are they going to do? If they're going to go and, you know, do anything extreme, like throw a brick through the window, everybody's just got to, I don't know, do a citizen's arrest on them. You know, there's no reason for violence or for destruction of property or anything like that. And if that does happen, the only people that will benefit is the state. So you have to wonder, you know, what kind of moron would do anything like that, and then let citizens arrest them or something. I don't know, but you know, I think it's very easy to get caught up either in being worried that somebody is going to cause some sort of issue, or dwelling on too many you know, complexities or hearsay and all this sort of thing. And really, we just need to stick to the two facts and you know, and everybody be peaceful. And most, I mean, I've not met anybody that hasn't been, you know, truthfully. I mean, there's lots of different opinions, there's lots of different personalities, but most people can, you know, look at the clear-cut, you know, facts, and that's what we should do. Yeah.
James, can I jump in?
I think we should also remember, of course, that it's a classic tactic.
Okay.
It's a classic tactic to get people scared, and if there's one thing that the state would try and do to disturb our efforts is to get us fearful of being arrested. But of course, I make the point that we're not doing a single thing unlawfully, and people should not take that into consideration.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Brian wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know you're waiting, Bill. So I'll just be quick.
I'm the same as you, Brian. I've got a clock in my head.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this is the most important thing. Everything we're doing has been above board. We are trying to get the truth out there. So we're not doing anything unlawful or illegal, and that's the first point. The second point is that if anybody starts doing things which is not right, that may be being aggressive with the police or breaking the law or being violent or getting into that sort of mode, these are not people that we want associated with this campaign. So if you are with a group of individuals and people start to make trouble, get away from the people making the trouble, because they're not part of this campaign. This campaign is about ordinary, decent, law-abiding people who want to get the truth out on the streets. That's the first thing. The second thing is just to say that I'm pleased to say I have personally had communication with Robert in prison.
Oh, excellent.
He's writing me letters, as he is many hundreds, thousands of other people. But he has told me that he's been exceptionally well treated in the prison. There has been huge interest in the campaign, both from the other inmates, perhaps not surprisingly, but also from prison staff. And I think he would be quite happy for me to say it's quite clear that people in the judicial system in Scotland, whether they're in the court system or the prison system, are aware there is something rotten at the centre of Scotland's law system. The UK column published a little while ago an expose on an operation called Operation Planet, which took place in Scotland some years ago, and related to that operation, which was to do with the investigation into the abuse of a 16-year-old boy, it emerged that senior members of the Scottish law establishment were trying to see how they could modify the law so that men who abused young boys did not get brought to trial. This is not hearsay, this is fact, absolute fact. So Robert has been hugely encouraged by the support and treatment he's had from within the Scottish prison system, and surely if that system knew that he was not telling the truth, that he was a troublemaker, that he was a bad boy, they would have him pinned down at the moment in prison. The opposite is happening, is that he's getting huge support within the prison. And one of the things that's kept him buoyed up is the fact that he has had thousands of letters from people in this country and indeed worldwide. And when his post arrives in the prison, that is a major event for all the other prisoners because they are so intrigued to see the amount of mail he's getting.
Yeah, I actually got a letter from him last week when I came into Sound Art. There was a letter really repeating. I mean, it was just a very light subject, but it was a light letter. But, he was saying he was very much in good spirits. Bill,
Robert is being treated as a hero in prison. And that is anyone who fights against child abuse and they go into prison or anything like that, they are treated like heroes. And I believe that one night what echoed through that prison was "Free Robert Greene" continuously. And poor old Robert, he slept through it all. You know what I mean? He's the kind of guy he is. But while we're on the subject, because that scene when it was relayed to me, it just put me into the world of film. So let me just say something about our films for a minute. Now, for all those of you that are listening are not initiated into this case, and you might be hearing it for the first time, there is a film called Holly Greig Echoes Through the Royal Courts. That is Holly Greig Echoes Through the Royal Courts. It's very comprehensive, and it's about 45 minutes long, and I think you should all see it, because these films, we seem to be the only film company that are attacking this at the moment. I'll just give you all an example when you're talking about infighting. We put a film up recently. We put it up 6 or 7 days ago. It's called Sun, Sea and Satan. Sun, Sea and Satan. That is pushing 11,000 hits in 6 or 7 days. Go on to the comments, watch the film, go on to the comments, and you will see the trolls exposing themselves with many, many good people. And there are more good people than there are trolls. But it could educate a lot of you by just watching Sun, Sea and Satan, and then go on and you will see. You can tell the people, you can tell.
Right.
And they are free. Sorry, Lou. They are free, so you can all watch them free. We put all our work up for free, so that you can we can educate you all, because this is imperative now.
Yeah,
this is imperative. We've got, we've been messing about too long with this, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this is terrible. Oh, I can't believe it." Do you believe Holly Greig? But when 20 people turn up, it's no good. It's no good, And I think Brian Gerrish will agree with me on this, that the police, the army, the politicians, all the institutions, they have a discipline about them. We don't have that discipline. We do not have that discipline. We need it. We need that discipline to get the numbers on the street. And I would just like to say as well, maybe I might get myself in trouble here, but I would like to congratulate Anonymous for taking that website down. And keep going, guys and girls, because you are what this country needs. That is all you people of Anonymous. And they have infiltrators as well that they have to deal with.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, the Anonymous guys have been very supportive over this, and I believe, Roger, you might be able to confirm this. So the Anonymous guys, they've joined the campaign, have they not?
Yeah, we're getting a great deal of support, and we're obviously grateful for the wide and established support from the likes of Anonymous. But they're not the only ones, of course. It comes from a wide number of groups. But the old story is the more the merrier, of course. The more the merrier.
You know, in one respect, Roger, I don't know if you can hear me, but Holly is, if you can call a victim lucky, she is lucky as I am, because I know for a fact, and I'm sure Brian will back me up on this, that there are many children that have been abused that were then murdered. They were then murdered because today's victims are tomorrow's witnesses. And there have been so many children killed, murdered in the institutions, especially between the 1950s and up when the big cover-up started into the late 70s. So, you know, let's get real on this, everyone. Please. Yeah, look, Bill Maloney, I'm begging you all, please do something.
I must say, you've been very restrained today, Bill, with the old language. I must thank you for that.
Well, listen, I don't need to use expletives. I educated myself. But if I want to use expletives, I will use expletives, and no one on this planet will stop me, because that is what we're all fighting for.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, equality, and protecting our children.
Thank you, Bill.
You know, let's not.
Thank you.
That Bill can't talk without using expletives.
I know.
I do, because that is my culture.
I know.
I'm a very, very angry man, and I thank God for people like Robert Greene, Brian Gerrish, and whoever else. And I'd like to get Ikey the Pikey, David Icke, a little bit more involved in this, actually. So I'm calling it on. You're listening, David. I'm calling it on. We helped you. Now you help us.
Okay, Bill. Well, I don't know if he's listening, because I think he might be abroad, but...
Well, if he's not listening, maybe someone can tell him to get his finger out.
Right, Brian wants to jump in.
That is my personal opinion.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, I just wanted, just looking at our last 9 minutes...
Well, no, we're okay. We can have a bit of an extended. They're so kind up here. They're letting us carry on for a while. Well,
that's very good. Just for listeners, because one of the things that I think listeners may be interested in is that we know... from information that's come forward north of the border, that the Scottish establishment so far has spent a minimum of £500,000 to try and silence Robert Greene, and of course now he's in prison, it's costing them even more. So we've got this case where a Down syndrome girl is abused. As James has just said, what all people are asking for is, where is the full and proper investigation of her evidence? It's never happened. Does the Scottish establishment work in order to find out why so many people are unhappy, what was actually done? Does the Scottish establishment work to get the truth out? No. What it does is it spends a minimum of £500,000, some people now put it as high as £750,000, to try and shut one man, Robert Greene, up. Now, every time this happens, whether it's over the murder of Dr. Kelly, whatever the subject is, this British government works flat out to make sure that the truth doesn't come out. And so this expenditure north of the border, for me, is yet another tick in the box that they're covering up. A question which something I'd like to put to local people, because we're on a local radio show in South Devon, is if you really want some interesting answers, go to your local MPs and ask them about the Holly Gregg case, and ask them why they have done nothing. I'm not going to embarrass them individually by mentioning their names, but every single MP, all 643, I think it is, it may be more of that, but every single MP has been informed of this case repeatedly and asked to assist, and only, to my knowledge, 3 at the moment, of which I'd really like to give John Hemmings a very positive word, because he does so much for families with some 1 or 2 other MPs, but none of the local MPs in the South Devon area have got involved, even though some of them claim to be full-on Christians. When you take to them this, or you take this story to them, and you ask our local MPs for help in helping to bring to light the abuse of this Down syndrome girl, they don't want to know. So if you as a listener would like a challenge, go and see your local MP and ask them why they are not assisting in this case.
Well, Brian, if I could just jump in there, I've got an interview with Kate Hoey, Member of Parliament for Vauxhall, which is part of Lambeth, and I'm talking about the Cornell Brown and Nicola Thatcher case. Now, I done an interview with that woman, it was around about 8-9 months ago, I done it with her, and they let us into Parliament. That woman has done nothing to help this couple, even though she wrote a letter to Lambeth Social Services saying, I will not have this couple being treated like this. It is outrageous, blah, blah, blah. She has done nothing. We have held back the interview for all that time, wait and see what she does, but she hasn't done nothing. So, if you're listening, Kate, because I know she keeps track on us, your interview is going up very soon. And you have not come across as you should have come across.
Yeah, but I think this is an important point.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, we just had a bit of a calamity in the studio.
Someone dropped a bottle of champagne.
So yeah, we got a couple of bottles in of the champers, and I started drinking early, so it's 6 o'clock.
That's what a lot of the trolls are doing. I think we can also bring into it, when you talk about Facebook, you've got to remember there's a lot of alcohol and drugs. People are going onto Facebook when they're under the influence.
Well, I think it's this general mental illness that people have got these days, where they like to criticise other people's attempts in absolutely everything we do, and it's not just political, it's not just conspiracy, it's absolutely everything that goes on in real life. People just sit there and they criticise others, but very rarely do they actually sit up and actually do anything themselves, other than maybe post a link on Facebook or this and that.
That's all going to change now, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
All the listeners out there, they're on Holly Gregg now.
Exactly.
And they're going to do something because they've been listening to us.
But I mean, I always say this: everybody just needs to take 5 minutes out of their busy lives each day and just try and make something an effective change, no matter how small it may appear to be, because it's all those people taking part. When you plug into the matrix, as it were, and don't have a real effect on your local community, that's when things get bad, like what we're experiencing now. This has been a continuing.
What we've got to understand is that the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has caused bankruptcy across the world because they're taking the eye off the ball, or as we say in South East London, they're trying to take the dairy off it. That's how they're controlling everyone. Mm-hmm. People are struggling to buy food, to meet their bills. There's so many people. I don't know if anyone knows what an electric key is. It's normally used by the poor people. And you can put £6 on it. That's your emergency money. And then you've got gas cards. These people, what the banks and the International Monetary Fund has done is they are closing us down. With people like the Rothschilds, that's how they shut us up. They say, "Oh, we're in a recession. Where's the money gone? It hasn't left the planet."
Well, this is one of the reasons why they made sure that America went from one of the wealthiest nations to, it's going downhill really fast, and it's the destruction of a certain class of people that, once you get past that thing of putting food on the table and you've got the comfort of being able to, be politically active. They've removed that because they want us all so destitute and struggling just to get by that you haven't got the willpower to fight.
Exactly,
and that's exactly why
you do get those activists that do have the willpower to fight, and they need to get angry now. They need to get very angry.
And that's the thing.
What we're finding with a lot of people online, they're angry because they're skint, actually, then they become infiltrators and take their anger out, because we are perfect targets to take your anger out in this time of depression. And I'll tell you what, people, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, and turning a blind eye.
A lot with the black kids as well, and they are very angry. And I think that you would all be very surprised how clued up on Freemasonry, etc., that the black communities really are.
Right, I need to steer this back away because this is like another show to do, I think, on this. But I just want to.
It's all to do with Holly Gregg, isn't it? It's all to do.
It is. Well,
and we have to tell the people where it's coming from, Lou. That's
I understand that, Bill. So I just want to
Yeah, but Lou, you get us on this show, so because of the knowledge that we have and the experience that we have. And we need to get that across. And you don't just have to talk about Holly all the time.
Oh no, I understand that. I totally understand this, but I haven't got much time left, Bill. That's all, darling.
I know that. That's why we talk quick. We shouldn't.
Right. I just want to bring Roger back in just to sort of summarise what needs to be done. Roger. Hello. So your final comments and what needs to be, what you want from people. We said about getting in touch with Alan E. Kelly at, is it Hotmail or Gmail?
Hotmail.co.uk.
At hotmail.co.uk.
And I think the emphasis is that of all the events that I know we get involved in, this is probably one of the most important, because this is the one that the establishment are most fearful of, the truth coming out. And we believe that this is the push that we should make. And if people can, please make the effort to get to Aberdeen. It's enormously important. People like Robert Greene make the difference. People like Robert Greene are actually taking the establishment to task, and if we're not prepared to get up and support people like Robert Greene, then I think we've lost the cause. So, the emphasis is on please help and make the effort to get to Aberdeen.
Thanks, Roger. And say anyone who wants more information, they can go to freerobertgreene.co.uk. I believe there's a lot of stuff in the forums there about it, or contact Alan E. Kelly at hotmail.co.uk. Well,
can I just say something really important?
Of course you can, Bill.
Robert sent a message, and he said that if anything should happen to me while I'm in prison, it will not be of my doing, but of the establishment. That is how serious it is. That man is in there now. He is fighting for your children, not just Holly Gregg. That man is in there now in fear of his life all the time. Maybe a little food poisoning, maybe a bit of this, maybe a bit of that. This is time to get serious. And I'm going to go now, Lou.
Thank you, Bill.
But I would just like to finish as I normally do. God bless all victims and survivors.
Bill, thank you so much for spending your time. I know you haven't seen your family much this week, so thank you so much for sparing this time for me.
Cheers, Bill.
My pleasure. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, bye, Bill.
Cheers, Bill.
Brian, your final words.
Well, my final words are that if I go back sort of 6 or 7 years ago, I had never come across any of the things that we're talking about. I knew nothing about what was happening with children, the police, social services. All I had discovered was fraud and corruption going on, and this was in Plymouth, and as a result of that and starting a small community newspaper, we began to be told about more and more things. Fraud and corruption, yes, but then we started to be told about cases which sounded extraordinary, children being taken away from their parents under false pretences. When I investigated that, and I would say I did it in a dedicated, but I tried to make it very professional how I did it, how I looked at evidence and who I mixed and talked to, I came to the conclusion that what parents were reporting was true. Children were being taken away from their parents by the state, by the police, social services and secret courts under fraudulent evidence, perjury. And that then subsequently led to the fact that Anne Greg got in touch with me. I did the same thing. I met her. I investigated what she had to say. I looked at documentation. I talked with Robert Green, and that gave us the confidence to publish the initial part of the story. And we did that because we believed it was true. We believed it was in the public interest to get it out, and I still believe that. And if we do not do something about what is happening, we do not have a future, because we do not have our children. Our children are being taken away, or their lives are being destroyed. And I can also say to you that my Easter weekend was disturbed by getting a phone call. I don't mind getting the phone call because it's another child case. But I can tell local listeners that a couple in Plymouth who've had many other children taken away from them after the initial baby was taken away under false pretenses are being literally hunted by the police and Plymouth Social Services this weekend because they're desperate to take the latest baby as soon as it's born. I can't mention names because I'll be put in prison for mentioning the names because there's already injunctions, but I can assure listeners that what is actually going on under the surface in this country is horrific. The Holly Gregg case gives us an opportunity to start bringing this to the surface. We know that certainly within the press industry, good quality journalists are starting to report what's going on. The Telegraph and the Times and the Mail are now starting to talk about what's happening to our children. The BBC is absolutely complicit in the cover-ups. I have to say that because I believe that absolutely. The BBC simply toes the government's line. We have to get the truth out about the Holly Gregg case, and in doing so we are going to help many, many other parents and children who are victims of this horrific British system. And to use that word in relation to this case makes me, as a former naval officer, and I'm very close here to the seat of where I was trained, which is Dartmouth in Devon, it makes me, as a former naval officer, absolutely ashamed to be British at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Well, quite a show, really. Again, if people, people have issues with today's show, it's certainly not the views of Sound Art Radio, but please, if there are issues, email us, wouldn't you say, James? And then we can get the questions to the people that are relevant. As we, James and I are saying, we're not experts. We come on, we do this little show, we try and pick up things that aren't on the mainstream press, and we bring it to, and we invite people to come on who know about these things, just as we'll invite people on who disagree with what's going on, and the guests we have on. So if there is an issue that anybody has with regards to it, send us an email, the LouCollinsRadioshow@gmail.com or lou@libertytactics.com.
I would say anybody that they're sort of there's a lot of people saying that the Holly Gregg case is a load of balderdash. Well, you guys should be the ones pushing for an investigation the most. Just to expose, just expose it. That's all any one of us really wants.
That's it. None of us are getting anything out of this.
We would hope that if our children or our relatives or suffered abuse, that there would be a full investigation, and that's all that's being asked. That's all anybody wants. And if we had that back when when the allegations were first made, we wouldn't be here right now. Whether it was all fake or whether it was all real, we wouldn't be here right now. The fact of the matter is that a lot of money is being spent not to investigate, and very little is being done to actually investigate it. And you have to put yourself in the shoes of, if this happened to your kid, would you stand for that? Would you say, oh well, they've decided not to investigate it, and just go away? Like, I just don't understand why people would be protecting a lack of investigation.
So yeah, email questions that you have, and we can certainly pass them on to the relevant people who know specifically about this case. As we say, we're just a little stage. We just come on here once a week and give our opinions on what's going on in the break mugs, fall over things. So James, you're not running away yet. We're going to say goodbye to Brian and to Roger. Roger, thank you so much.
Thank you. Doing a good job.
Thanks, Roger. And we'll have another show. We'll talk about more about the Lawful Bank and how your talks are going.
Excellent. Okay.
Lovely one.
To it.
Thanks a lot, Roger.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you, Brian, for sparing your time, your Easter Monday. I know you don't get much time with the family, and Mrs. Gerrish, it must drive her mad. But
okay, no, it's been worth doing.
Yeah.
We've got a job to do at the moment, so thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Mrs. Gerrish. Right, next week, James.
Yes.
We have got... Is that your mic?
I think that was was it? My mic?
That's
yeah,
it.
There we go.
Next week, Ian Crane's coming in.
Cool.
He is jam-packed at the moment with his busy schedule. Next week, people who aren't going off onto the Aberdeen trip, I had it all written down here and I haven't got it. Ian's talking at the Southern Hay Hotel. I'm just going to get the details. You can go onto Ian Crane's website, which is, we're just getting it now, iancrane.co.uk, I think.
Ian R. Crane, isn't it?
Ian R. Crane, yeah, I'm just getting it. He's giving an all-day workshop next week, next Sunday it is. Yeah, it's ianrcrane.co.uk over in Exeter. So people who are local and want to hear what's really going on in the world and what we can expect for 2012. It's the Shift 2, the next level, and it's at the Mercure Southgate Hotel, Southern Hay East in Exeter. Tickets are available now, so he's going to be here next Monday anyway, after the Exeter workshop, to come and say how it's been and what's exactly going on, because there was that gas leak as well going on. Did you read about that, the gas leak that was going on?
A little bit. I don't have a television, so
no.
I miss a lot of the programming.
And Clive de Carl, who was also in with his health knowledge, he's going to be back in once a month to give his health tips. And there was something actually I found in the mail today. Can vitamin C see off your wrinkles? Well, Clive was saying that vitamin C can practically cure anything. So today in the Mail there is a big article on the benefits of vitamin C, so that's definitely worth a look. But yeah, Clive will be coming on the week after next to give us sort of 10 minutes of his health tips. Ian R. Crane will be in next week. Any questions you got for Ian R. Crane, email them, loucollinsradioshow@gmail.com or lou@libertytactics.com. This will be going up as a YouTube video, will it, James?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, darling. And I'll try and get it up on SoundCloud later on today. As I say, I have to give a big thanks to Sound Art again for letting us come in here and spout off
the place.
and wreck the place with broken mugs. And James and I'll be back in next Monday, 11 o'clock as usual. We're going to play out with Chris Moffat's song, which was all ready made for this weekend. So we're going to play out with that. As I say, we'll be here next week. Everyone off to Aberdeen, good luck, keep safe, keep peaceful, and free Robert Greene.
And tell somebody about the tale of Robert Greene. He tried to give out some leaflets on the streets of Aberdeen. Corrupt police arrest him for preaching the peace. Exposing child abuse is a crime. The well-connected break the law, and will it seems, while Robert Greene is doing time. Relieved of his right to freedom, but this isn't going away. Who cares about us mindless media? Good people will have their say. Against the state vendetta on a gentleman. So let the truth inside your head just to serve. Empathy must not be forgotten, and every child's voice must be heard. Please listen and tell somebody about the tale of Robert Greene. He tried to give out some leaflets on the streets of Aberdeene. Corrupt police arrest him for preaching the peace. Exposing child abuse is a crime. The well-connected break the law, and will it seems, while Robert Greene is doing time.
Come with us into the unknown. Join us on a journey that will open your eyes and push the boundaries of your imagination.
Including police officers, including at least one police officer. They talked their way into her flat. When they got inside, she was forced to the ground. Her trousers were pulled down and she had a needle stuck in her her bottom. And the next thing is she wakes up in a psychiatric unit. Now, some of our listeners might be shocked and they might be disbelieving what I'm saying, but I will say to the people who are listening to us this morning, not only do I believe this story is true, and I've worked with Anne and Holly and other people such as Robert Greene for some time, but we have other cases to do with children being taken by the state where mothers who try and protect their children or speak out are sectioned. So Anne eventually got herself out of the psychiatric unit or was released. She did something very sensible, which is that she got herself assessed by an independent psychiatrist who said this mother is perfectly normal. And from that time on, Anne has campaigned to get justice for her daughter. And Robert Greene was a man who came on the scene some years ago. He also took an interest in the case, and then he began to seriously research, I will say almost as an investigative journalist. But when he realised that the case was true and that there was a cover-up by the Scottish establishment and judiciary to prevent this abuse case from coming fully into the public domain. As he campaigned, Robert came under, I'm going to call it, the attack by the establishment, which has subsequently resulted in him being put into prison. And we believe that was done. That was basically a stitch-up, I think we will call it. So against that background, we've got a very turbulent case going on at the moment. It's quite clear from the actions of the state, and that is through the police or the judiciary in Scotland, but also south of the border, despite the fact that every single British MP has been informed about this case. Only 2 or 3 of them have shown any interest. The rest of them, faced with the fact that we have a major cover-up of child abuse, have simply preferred to hide their faces or remain silent. So do I think that we're in a situation where the state does not wish this protest to take place? My opinion is absolutely. Do I expect the state to do whatever dirty measures it can in order to shut people up? Absolutely. Do I believe that people should therefore say we can't get involved or we don't want to get involved? Well, that is a very, very interesting question, because if we shy away from issues of getting the truth out about...
Good morning, it's Lou Collins. It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 9th, is it today? The 9th of April, 2012. It's just after 11 o'clock. I've got 2 people in with me. I've got James, as usual. Morning, James.
Good morning, Lou. How are you?
I'm very well. And I've also got Mr. Brian Gerrish in. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning to you.
And over on Skype, we have, here's the technology bit going, Roger Hayes. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
So, the main subject, really, I suppose, of this show today is the forthcoming trip to Aberdeene, which your idea, Roger. Can you tell us how's it all going, how the plan's getting on, and, how far, are we all set up for Aberdeene next weekend?
Well, we are. We've obviously called on as many people as are able to do so to go to Aberdeene to actually assist to expose what's been going on with regards to the unlawful imprisonment of Robert Greene. And we're planning a leafleting campaign in the city. And obviously, as far as we're concerned, this is the line in the sand with regards to the way the establishment there is breaking the law and will not pay attention to many of the facts that have arisen out of what Robert Greene has been exposing. And obviously we're talking about alleged paedophile ring in Aberdeene.
Scottish judiciary, care assistants and others. And she gave details of what had happened to her. She also knew a lot of information. She knew people's names. She knew what their jobs were. She knew relationships between people. And she was eventually interviewed by Grampian Police. And Grampian Police described Holly Gregg as a reliable witness. And they made that statement in writing. So we have a young Down syndrome girl who made very detailed and precise allegations of rape and abuse and some other related, and I'm going to say, 2 disgusting things to talk about on air. The police interviewer, they acknowledge that she's credible, and then what do the police do? And the answer is, I'm afraid, nothing. They do not go and interview any of the people that Holly named. And from that time on, as Holly's mum Anne herself campaigned and pushed and cajoled for something proper to happen with the police so that her daughter could obtain justice, what happened was that pressure was put on Anne, including the worst kind at one stage, where a group of people arrived at her home.
And it seems that the establishment do not want to investigate the facts that he's put before them. So as far as the actual the campaign on or in Aberdeen on the 14th and 15th this coming weekend. We're asking people if they can contact us and if they will actually make the effort to get to Aberdeen and help out with the leafleting campaign there.
Right, okay. Over these last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of, well, there's been all sorts of things coming up and questions over it, over the case, which I want to really talk to Brian about. There's been lots of questions. There's been lots of infighting, we think. What are your thoughts on what's going on there, Brian?
Well, can I just say, in case we got some new listeners this morning, they may not be sure about what the background is of what we're talking about.
Okay.
What we're talking about is the case of a lady from Aberdeen called Anne Gregg and her daughter, who's a Down syndrome girl called Holly. And some time ago, we're talking some years ago, Holly made allegations about being sexually abused and raped by a gang of people, which included members of the Scottish establishment. And if we get these points up front, then we'll have a solid basis to be able to talk about the rest of the subjects during the show. Holly made accusations against a number of people. They included police officers, people in the